All right, today we're going to talk about something that's incredibly important but so often misunderstood. We're talking about depression. And no, this isn't just about feeling sad. It's a serious, complex condition, and it can have life or death consequences. So we're going to break down what our source material tells us about it, what it is, how it takes hold, and importantly, what a path to healing can actually look like. Let's get into it.
First up, I just want you to look at this number, 40,000. Just let it sink in for a second. What do you think that number means?
That number, 40,000, is the estimated number of people who die by suicide linked to depression every single year in Vietnam alone. Now, to put that into perspective, because it's a huge number to wrap your head around, that is 4 times higher than the number of people who die in traffic accidents. This isn't just a statistic. It's a devastating public health crisis that we absolutely have to talk about. And that staggering figure really drives home the reality of this condition. Our source material doesn't frame this as just a mood disorder. It frames it as what it can be, a silent killer.
And make no mistake, this is a global problem. According to the World Health Organization, we're talking about 280 million people affected worldwide. It contributes to over 700,000 suicides every single year. But here's the part that really gets me. For young people, aged 15 to 29, it's the 4th leading cause of death. That's just unbelievable.
You know, this quote from our source really says it all. It can completely hijack a person's way of thinking, trapping them in these negative loops that can lead to truly heartbreaking actions. So, how does it get to that point? How does it escalate? Well, to really get it, we have to look at how depression can progress. The source describes it as a kind of deepening journey, one that often moves through some pretty clear stages. So it often happens in 3 stages, getting more severe over time. Stage 1 might start with sadness and isolation. You lose your energy, you stop caring about hobbies you used to love, you just want to be alone. Then it can escalate to stage 2. This is where fear and paranoia start to creep in. You get mood swings, you stop trusting people, and terrifyingly, the first thoughts of suicide can appear. And in the final stage, stage 3, it's just complete despair. This is where there's a total feeling of hopelessness and thoughts of death can become frequent, leading to a tendency towards self-harm.
And it's so important to understand that this isn't just in your head. The physical toll is absolutely real. It can literally weaken your immune system, putting you at a higher risk for major illnesses like heart disease and cancer. And it often shows up as chronic pain, headaches, insomnia, and just a general neglect of taking care of yourself.
And on top of all that, it really attacks your ability to think clearly. Our source describes how people can lose their ability to concentrate, experience gradual memory loss, and even face an increased risk of early-onset Alzheimer's. And to try and cope with all of this, some people might turn to substance abuse, which of course just makes the isolation and the cycle so much worse. Okay, so we've seen the devastating effects, but where does all this come from? What are the root causes that can kickstart this downward spiral?
Well, according to our source material, there's no single answer. It's really complex. It can be rooted in psychological trauma, either from your past or something happening right now. It can be triggered by huge life events, a divorce, going bankrupt, losing someone you love. Or it could be immense pressure from work, family, or school. And sometimes it can even be biological, like postpartum hormonal shifts or a side effect from certain medications.
So, when it comes to treatment, our source presents 2 very different paths. On one hand, there's medication, and while it's a tool for many, the source points out that it can come with some serious potential side effects, things like dependency, memory loss, or even damage to your liver and kidneys. On the other hand, it highlights an approach called psychological support, which it defines by these 4 no's: no medication, no physical intervention, no side effects, and no future complications.
And that second approach, the one based on psychological support, leads us to a much more hopeful part of this whole story, the actual path to healing.
So what exactly is this psychological support that the source talks about? Well, think of it as a drug-free way to heal from the inside out. The whole goal is to use guided therapy to help people find and resolve those deep internal conflicts that are really the source of the pain. The source lays out this really fascinating, structured 6-day process. On day 1, it's all about unlocking the subconscious to find that true root cause. Then on day 2, you move to adjusting those core thought patterns. Day 3 is about letting go of negative anchors and setting a real goal. By day 4, you're building new positive beliefs. Day 5 is focused on eliminating anxiety and stress. And finally, on day 6, the goal is to awaken your own potential so you can handle future challenges yourself.
And this whole process is built on some really important promises. Absolute confidentiality, of course, but it also aims for noticeable improvement right from the first few sessions. The goal is a completely natural recovery, to help people feel positive, love themselves, and be more confident, and, crucially, to give them the actual skills to manage their emotions and stress long-term.
Okay, so the process sounds great on paper, right? But what does it actually mean for real people? Well, our source materials share some incredibly powerful stories.
First, let's talk about T, a 28-year-old from Hanoi who went from the absolute lowest point, a suicide attempt, to a place of real self-discovery. They said that through the process, they finally understood who they were, figured out their goals, and built the discipline to go after them. A wonderful journey, they called it.
Then you have Kayan's story, who was born in 2010. So we're talking about someone very young here, who used to be withdrawn and would lash out. And the change is just wow. They now say they've mastered their emotions, feel at peace, and can actually communicate with people proactively instead of reacting with anger.
And this last story from TU is so important because it really highlights the possibility of breaking free. After 4 years on medication with no real progress, they tried this approach. After just 5 months, they were able to stop the drugs, learn to manage their emotions, and get their independence back, moving out and finding a job. These stories, they're just incredible reminders that no matter how dark it gets, recovery is possible. There is a path forward. So for anyone out there who's listening to this and it's hitting home, for you or for someone you love, remember that the journey always begins with that one single step. And the most important question is, what is your first step going to be?
Health is the most precious gift. If this video helped you or someone you love, please like, subscribe, and share so more families can stay safe and healthy.